E pas lamos, jas pus, jas keles molo nihoch chu.
Yal! Pial nunekak! He's sick. Oh, he said. Welcome to Tuesdays Night at 9ish. I am your host, Jeff Mater. We're here. We're finally here. We're full hawk. And Jameel's not here yet to experience the full hawk, but we are going to break it all down. I'm your host. Joined, as always, with my brother, Dave Mater. Let's bring him on in. Dave, how are you?
I'm excellent, Jeff. This is the moment I've been waiting for since we began this journey on this podcast, since Emissary. It's all been leading to the Way of the Warrior for me.
This is your favorite episode of the series?
I would say so, yes. We'll see how I feel as we continue this rewatch, but nothing tops this for me so far.
Okay. Let's bring on in the tag team couple. They have a lot to say, I'm sure, about this episode. Guys, how are you, first of all? And second, how much do you love Gowron?
Jeff! Are you ready to join me in glorious battle?
I am not ready. I have honor.
Surrender while you can.
Oh man. This is our first episode with Gowron on in Deep Space Nine. It's our first episode with
No,
Worf.
it's not.
It's not our first episode.
You
with
forget
Worf?
the House of Quark.
Oh yes, he is in that episode. Yes, that's right. But it's our first episode with Martok. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
because remember, this was Gowron last season.
But if you can stand here and murder this pathetic little man, then you have no honor.
And I thought Quark was so good in this episode. There's so many great moments for Quark where he's like, he drinks his prune juice and he hates the Klingons, and it's just so many great moments for Quark. But we'll get to that.
Prune juice.
Yeah, there's 2 prune juice gangs in this episode. I love it. Okay. Should we just kind of go through the episode? Should we get first thoughts?
Yeah, maybe initial reaction, and then we can get into it.
Okay. Initial reaction. Isn't this episode is kind of weird because it's a Worf-centric episode who's not a main cast member until this episode. So it is kind of strange. Like they're bringing, like, it almost feels like a guest appearance episode, but at the same time it's not because he's joining the cast. But it's like, we already know so much about Worf. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in this episode. So for me, it's like, there's a lot going on with the Dominion too. And there's no Dominion in the episode. I mean, there's Cardassians, there's Klingons, but
the whole cold open is setting up is reinforcing the Dominion threat, which was really like set up at the end of last season, right? Where he was like, Otis said, you're too late, right?
Right.
He said, you're too late. We are everywhere.
Right. And so it starts off like, we're chasing a changeling.
Yeah.
Sisko's hair is gone. It's not even explained.
Kira's hair is bigger for some reason. That's not explained.
Shoulder pads even pattier.
Yeah. This whole moment I actually really like because like they don't tell you it's Odo, and I love the line that Kira gives her. She's like, "This changeling knows the station better than any of us," and that's true. He does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's what do you say?
I guess I don't have much of an imagination.
I love my favorite moment in this whole sequence was at the end when O'Brien goes, "Bang, you're dead."
Yeah. Yeah, phasers don't even make that
Bashir. So is Dr. Bashir.
I can't believe that was the dialogue they wrote. Bang, you're dead.
We actually commented on that while we watched the episode.
So good. He's like, and so is Dr. Bashir.
He can be a surface. He can be anything.
Yeah, you can be a reflective light panel. 3 hours, 24 minutes is too long.
Yeah, you know how much damage they could do in that much time?
Think how long it would take if I was on the case. It would take double that at least.
Go back to your precious vortex.
Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of the cold open, at least for the... We also get the Sisko Kasidy Yates storyline, which is kind of like a through line through this episode, but it's almost like it's good, but isn't necessary. I guess it's a long...
It feels like a bit of a distraction, doesn't it?
Yeah, like it kind of feels like they should have had their own episode, you know? It kind of feels like... I don't know if it really works in this episode, but I mean, I don't hate it, but I just don't know.
I think it does. I think it the same way that Worf's and Dax's relationship brings more character to Dax, Kasidy brings more of Sisko's character out. Like he becomes a more three-dimensional character with her. So I like that they kind of pepper her in instead of having
it also helps set up how long, like the course of time that this episode takes place over too, because they're having dinner and later she says that she'll be leaving to do this. She says, I'll be gone for 2 weeks. And then she ends up coming back later in the episode. She's back from that trip when he's now leaving and she's saying goodbye, please don't die. So now it's 2 weeks later. So we know how long this has been going.
You say this whole thing takes place over the course of a month?
Yeah, it seems like it.
Wow, I never thought about that before.
Yeah. It's at least like 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. It moves.
It definitely moves.
It definitely
There's also...
does.
I like the line Sisko gives to Kasidy where he says, the way to a woman's heart is through her stomach. And I said that's to Amanda. And she said, that's not true. That's the way to a man's heart.
That's what the saying is.
The way to a woman's heart is through her stomach?
The way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Right, but he says the way to a woman's heart. Right. So it's kind of like I think the way to Sisko's heart is through his stomach, but I don't know. Yeah, then she gives him a hat from the Pike City Pioneers, our brother's baseball team. I never realized we got to see the hat.
The Pike City Pioneers.
Yeah, he was really happy about that hat.
He put it on right away. I mean, for a man who just shaved his head.
And now they're planning a 2-month vacation.
8 weeks. It's an 8-week trip out to Cestus 3.
That sounds like baseball.
He's ready to go, though.
That sounds like baseball.
And I think they have to, for how serious their relationship becomes and how quick, they have to do these things to show us that they've progressed while we've been away, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely do that, and they do that better than like a TNG episode, because TNG it was people come in and out, and you're just like, how long has it been since the last episode? Doesn't matter, so you just keep going, This like they're go ahead, Ashley. Sorry.
TNG would have like a single cast member, and then all of a sudden an episode where he's getting married to a character we've never met.
Right,
like Keiko.
Like Keiko, yeah.
Yeah.
Keiko, you're taking my taters. Okay.
Okay, so that's kind of the cool.
I think also too, Jeff, because Kasidy Yates wasn't in the finale. We just had like these forced conversations with Dax and Sisko in season 3 finale.
Yeah, and there's
when are you gonna see Kasidy again?
Right, and there's no Jake to be like, Dad, go on a date.
Yeah, Jake doesn't show up in this episode.
No, main cast member, and he's been replaced by Worf. Okay. We also so then we get General Martok showing up, cloaking in front of the station. Sisko goes to the bridge wearing his ridiculous garb. I don't know what he's
Jeff.
wearing.
He goes to ops. There's no bridge.
Oh, whatever, ops. You know what I meant. We have I don't know what he's wearing here in this first scene, but
Jane commented. Jane was watching with me, and she did not like Sisko's outfit. I don't know if you have a photo of it. I do not.
I can show it too. Yeah, one sec. It's almost like he's wearing like pajamas, and then he has like a vest pajama on over, like a blanket vest on as well.
Yeah, let's just have a quick. Yeah, it's like the vest. I don't know. It looks better in this light than it did in like his quarters. But it's an interesting civilian look. 24th century human. This is what you wear on a date. This is what you wear on a date.
But that's what he would pick out. I mean, I assume he picked out all of Jake's clothes when Jake was younger.
Yes.
Right? So
based on that track record, this tracks.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
I did like Cassidy's dress though. She had a nice like blue dress going on.
Yeah, no, she's got a nice thing going on. Yeah, so the flagships here, the what's it called?
Ningfar. The Ningfar.
Ningfar. It's the flagship of the fleet. The General Martok. We're meeting him for the first time. He has both his eyes, so that's rare.
It's not the real Martok though. Well, we don't know that yet.
He's not.
Right, he's not the real Martok. So okay, we get the scene right. Okay, so we'll get to that actually. Well, let's talk about the scene in Quark's bar where we have O'Brien and Bashir. They're eating. They want some yammock sauce to go with their sand peas.
It's an odd combo. I've never been eating like a bowl. Sand peas are what I assume are kind of like eating a bowl of nuts. And I've never been eating a bowl of nuts and go, hey, do you have any sauce I can throw all these nuts?
Especially like yammock sauce to me sounds like tartar sauce. You know, like
whatever kind of sauce it is, how are you going to apply the sauce to your dry item you're eating with your hands? And which O'Brien is cleverly flicking into his mouth through some kind of a bar trick thing he's doing.
So Quark comes over and he says, listen, guys, my lobes are telling me that something's wrong because when the Klingons are on the station, it's at least a 65 on the decibel range, but they're only registering at like a 30. So it doesn't make sense. Something's up, Quark says. And
they just ignore him.
Yeah, they're like, they're our allies, Quark. What are you talking about? You know, they're not command guys. Okay, so I do kind of understand like why they don't care. They're like, listen, I'm a doctor. He's an engineer. We get, we have better things to do than to, conspire. Think about conspiracy theories.
They're like, if something's up, then Sisko will handle it. That's what Sisko does.
That's exactly what he does.
Why don't you go talk to Sisko, Quark?
Okay, so then we get the scene with Martok and Kira and Sisko in the main meeting room where they do the blood cutting of the hand and the blood. So my question is, yes, we do know that Martok is a changeling. How did he fake this? Is it the old Odo with the coffee trick that we learn later on in this episode, or like how did he do that?
I assume he has a sack of blood inside of him, and he's able to sort of release it when he needs to.
I think because he's holding the knife, and the knife is an extension of like the changeling's body, kind of like the coffee cup, and he can refill the coffee cup, right, with coffee.
But he drips it down on the table.
He drips on the table. Once it hits the table, it should revert.
But why doesn't it? That's my question.
Because it's not. It's real blood. It's just not the real Martok. So somehow he's faking it.
I
want to know why they cut the palms of their hands. That's the worst place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you would want to cut like your finger, the tip of your finger.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Probably be the best.
I don't know. I think it's just like it's one of their weird like tough guy things that the Klingons like to do. Like, look, we like to cut ourselves. Look how hardcore we are. We're metal. Da, 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 da.
Right. Okay. And then we get possibly one of the more objectifying scenes in Star Trek where Dax walks in with two male models from Trill, and Kira's like, this is kind of messed up. And she's like, well, I just got a great massage. She'll give you one. You want a massage? And I'm like, this is messed up. Like, what? I'm like, what? I
didn't remember this at all. I loved it on the rewatch. I was like, yeah. So did she take her to like a hedonistic spa that on like at the baths of Trill? And Kira is just Miss Prude, she, even if she's playing a married woman, she can't handle it, right?
Well, I do love that she stays true to her like religious beliefs, and like she's not about this, and Dax is kind of like, she's like, have fun, stop being such a lame like friend, basically.
I guess I never had much use for my imagination.
But I was playing a married woman.
Right, we'll get to that. Right now we're talking about this scene though, where yeah, like she's like, relax, you have to use your imagination. She's like, didn't you use your imagination when you were a kid? She's like, actually, no. I was horribly tortured and beaten by the Cardassians, so not a lot of time for that.
Yeah.
And then Dax goes, okay, you got the point. You got a point there. Okay, but it's still fun, right? You sure you don't want a massage?
What was his name? He had a name, that guy.
1 second.
Malco.
Malco. Yeah. You want Malco?
She's like, Malco's not real. And she's like, just imagine he's real.
Also, the way she goes, she goes like, he just gave me the most amazing massage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's so like, so yeah, sexually suggestive for sure.
For sure. We're getting like they're leaning in hard on who Dax is now, which I love.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And that's her character. And it is weird that they're friends because yeah, like you got like it'd be like a really religious person and like somebody that likes to hit the dance clubs, being best friends.
Well, I think they're stressing their differences. Often, like also how they do it with Bashir and O'Brien. They kind of like show how they're different, but seem to enjoy each other's company regardless.
Okay, this next scene when they showed the Klingons like on the promenade, I really loved the way that this was shot. It really stood out for me, especially with like the blue alien guy like opens up his shop and he turns the light on, and just the way it was shot was really, really well done. I thought the director really used the space well, I think, for the beginning of this episode especially.
This is directed by James L. Conway.
Yes, he's directed a few episodes of Supernatural, the good years. He did he did the real Ghostbusters. He did Sam Interrupted. He did some good ones. Okay, so then it kind of cuts to the scene with Garak and Odo talking about, like I said before, the coffee, and he can refill the coffee, much like it reminded me of the scene in I believe it's in Thor Ragnarok when Thor goes to see Doctor Strange and like he just refills the glass. They did the same effect basically,
right?
And I so like once again, Star Trek way ahead of Marvel, or maybe a little bit of homage that they did as well. But yeah, so Garak's talking about the destruction of the Obsidian Order, the threat of the Dominion. He's a little concerned for Cardassia, and he should be, because this episode's not going to, go too well for Cardassia. What do you guys make of this scene? Kevin and Ashley, we'll go to you.
I like any scene with Garak.
Me too.
Yes. And Garak is great in this episode. This scene is, I think you're onto something with them trying to do something with the blood and having this scene, but it still doesn't really track because he drips it on the table. But I think that is what they were trying to set up, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
I think they didn't figure out what they were going to do with that rule. And because he says like he can refill the coffee, the coffee is part of him, but if he spills the coffee out, is it still coffee?
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's what. Yeah. So they're going against their own law, which is weird.
Well, that's it. That somehow the Martok changeling is fooling this test.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not his. It's not part of his body. It's not part of the changeling's body. He's somehow releasing it. Somehow.
Because he knew that they well, first of all, he's the one that suggested.
He's the one that asked for the test.
He's the one who wants to do it from the beginning anyway. And usually somebody who's pushing for those kinds of things is the one who's the infected one, or is the one who's the actual one who's trying to cover it up. We saw that even play out in The Adversary, the season 3 finale, where the Bashir, the changeling as Bashir, was kind of like running the blood screenings. It could kind of throw it onto Eddington, who does not show up in this episode. Where's the lucky loony?
Right. Okay, so then we get this they're eating and they're talking about the Cardassia stuff, and then they notice that the Martok's son and a bunch of his goons are harassing Morn. Poor Morn. Why?
Yeah.
Morn. And then they say something to Odo in Klingon, and Garak goes, "Oh, I don't know if that's." If he has a mother. Yeah, I don't think Constable Odo has a mother. And the guy looks at him like, oh, shit. Yeah.
Actually, I'm not sure Constable Odo has a mother.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes on about Cardassian lapdogs and you're a changeling. I don't take orders from changelings and all
Shapeshifters are the Cardassian lapdogs. Yeah.
So I actually kind of like his performance here. Like, it's not an easy thing to do.
Rodak. What's his name? What's the son's name? Rodak or something?
Yeah, something like that.
We never see him again, even though presumably he's the real son of Grilka, or not Grilka, whoever, Lusara, is that the name of Martok's wife?
Yeah. You know what? He's kind of a shitty son if he can't tell that his own father isn't his own father.
Well, he apparently couldn't, but neither could his wife. So
that's true.
Yeah, so we never see him again, but presumably, as we know, Worf later joined the House of Martok.
Right.
And presumably this guy was there.
And that's because of this episode.
He might be dead, but they never said he died, so we have to assume he's still alive.
Right. But yeah, I would not be surprised if he were dead. But yeah, so then they follow Garak to his tailor shop, and there's 6 Klingons against the 1 Cardassian, and he says you're either lost or you're in desperate search for a good tailor. This is again another great.
You're either lost or desperately searching for a good tailor.
There it is. Yes. So yeah, then one of my favorite scenes in this episode comes right after, where Garak is talking to Bashir, and he goes, "They did serious. He's like, I can't believe you didn't press charges. They did serious damage to your ribs. They cracked your sternum. Like, what the hell's going on here?" He goes, "Oh, the damage I did will last a lifetime. I got considerable shots in on their ego.
There was no harm done."
Yeah, he says,
but I got off several cutting remarks, which no doubt did serious damage to their ego.
Like Bashir goes, there's no need to be funny. Like, he doesn't laugh, but he knows it's funny what he said.
The damage I did to them will last a lifetime.
He goes, perhaps they decided they just didn't like me.
Right, and he's like, well, the Cardassians and the Klingons have always gone along. He's like, well, what about this? He's like, that's a long time ago. We've mostly get along. In the mirror universe, we're best friends.
Right, that's true. Okay, so that's kind of it for that scene, but it's one of my favorites. Okay, so then we go into Kira goes into Sisko's office and says like, oh, we got a distress signal from the Zoza, Kasidy's ship, and Sisko's like, okay, all right, we gotta go.
Is this the first time that Sisko goes up to like the turbo lift and goes like, Defiant?
I don't think so. I think they've done it before. Maybe it's the first time he's done it, but I think they've done it before. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. We'll find out in Fun Facts probably. Okay, so then they get onto Defiant and they got to fix on her location, so they head out to find her, and then they find a Klingon ship with a tractor beam on her ship, and they can't get in contact with Kasidy because of this tractor beam, so they hail the Klingon ship. And the Klingon ship basically says, we need to scan every single ship that is leaving Bajoran space to see if they're shapeshifters. And then Kira comes in and goes, this is Bajoran space, Bajoran law, bitch. And that's basically what happened. And then he goes, well, Gagaron told me to. He said, we do not forgive or forget. So you must screen all of those people on Kasidy's ship.
Yeah, well, Sisko plays a real hardball here, too. He's like, hey, launch torpedoes. Like, he's like, you're messing with my girlfriend there, bud. I'm going to blow you out of the sky if you don't back off right now.
Right.
He's not messing around.
Game to go to.
I've poisoned planets for less.
I will poison planets.
Yes, I will poison planets. Well, who knows what he did before this?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Commander, I said launch torpedoes.
Well, I did miss a scene. There was a scene with Dax and Sisko where they talk about the Klingons, and they say, and he says to her, Curzon once told me that the only people that can solve Klingons are Klingons. So that's when he basically sends a message to Starfleet headquarters and says, I need Worf. Send me Worf. Basically, right? So I forgot that part.
Even though he's never been he's like,
get me Starfleet command.
He's like, I'm bringing in a ringer.
That's basically what he's doing. Yeah, he's like, I got top bill. I need the prize fighter. I need Worf. Let's go.
Yeah, and this is where Worf comes into the show at this moment. Even though we all like by this point, it's all announced. Everyone knows he's joining the show. Back in 1995 when this first aired, but it's a pretty big moment. Him coming into the show. He's not set up because like there was 2 years of crossover between Next Gen and DS9, and there was even the episode in TNG where he goes to Deep Space Nine and he's there for like to get some information from a Uridian, and then he keeps going on and with the Romulans or whatever, and so he never like they could have set up him meeting Sisko or something, but obviously they didn't plan for him to join this cast back during that time. And now the Next Gen has been off the air for about a year, or no, over a year at this point, and Generations has come and gone, and so the feeling was Deep Space Nine, they need like a really popular character to come in and shake this show up. I know that maybe the cast who have been there since like season 1, some of them didn't feel the same way, but the show was never the same again.
No, it was a good move.
Yeah.
they needed somebody that was like that. They needed a tactical officer, like they really did. They needed somebody that was like a badass, because like the badass on the show was Kira, and it was like not working. Like I mean, she's like
a spiritual badass. Like,
yeah, and she has a lot of like trauma in her backstory, and so for Worf is kind of like the flip side of that. He's like
he has trauma, but
he does, but he for him it's more about honor and the honor of the fight, and whereas Kira's trying to end the fighting. It's kind of Captain America against Tony Stark. You know, it's kind of like that kind of dynamic. Like, don't we fight to end the fighting? You know. That's the kind of the Kira position. We also, Sisko says to him here too, also, like, oh, it was a fine ship. The Enterprise got destroyed. Why is like all of a sudden like the ship got destroyed? I guess is this like in the time when they're building the new Enterprise for
this is that because from the time the Enterprise D is destroyed at the end in Generations, which is in 1994, so there's been at least a few months since that's happened, if not more, almost a year since the Enterprise has been destroyed, and presumably, they're building the Enterprise E during this time period, but there was like Picard and the crew obviously had some time off between ships.
Well, O'Brien does say to Worf in this, they'll build another Enterprise, and he said, but it won't be the same.
Yeah, right. And he's right.
Yeah. So
yes, we know you hate the E day.
They may in universe they may not have announced that they're building another Enterprise.
Yeah, like maybe not. Maybe it's not a.
Not they are building another one.
Do you like that he shows up in this uniform and then by the end of the episode like it changes? Like, do you like that little kind of that dynamic, Dave? I know you're the uniform guy.
Yeah, because I think they had to like sort of transition him. Like he's from the other show. So he's showing up here in his Next Gen sort of uniform here in his outfit. He's distinctly looking TNG, and that he's sort of here for the episode helping out, and it almost does feel like a guest appearance. But unlike many others, by the end, he'll be in the red. He'll be one of them. And I think the change to give him like the different division color here was an important one to say that this is like a new era for him, that he's learning command and that Sisko is going to become his mentor, and that his relationship with Sisko is going to be very different from his relationship with Picard.
Right.
He's going back to command.
Back to command, yes. He starts off in the command division.
Starts off in red in Next Gen.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's important because Worf is the type of guy that he kind of becomes like the Riker of this show. I mean, yes, we have Kira, but Kira's got a whole different.
She's got her own shit going on.
She's got her own shit going on, and the Bajoran.
And she's not Starfleet.
She's not Starfleet. When they're on the Defiant, it's really Worf that's in charge, not Kira. So he kind of becomes the Riker of this show, and this is the start of it. And it makes a lot. He mentors Worf, Sisko does way more than he mentors Kira about command decisions and stuff.
Well, I don't think he feels like he needs to with Kira as much. It's more that she needs to be more tempered.
Yes,
but not necessarily that she does. She needs to learn how to do it. She knows how to do it. She just has to like remember to listen to herself. Oh, we got somebody coming in here. Jeff.
Sisko would have to mentor Worf because he's Starfleet.
Jaemeel, you patak.
I may have been late for the time, but I did not forget.
You forgive, but you do not forget. Yes. Welcome, Jaemeel. We are only 29 minutes basically in the recap of this hour-long episode. So we basically just kind of set up all the setup, which is the Klingons are on the station. Worf has shown up. Worf has got to investigate what's going on because Sisko does not trust what Martok is feeding him, and is not telling him the whole truth. There's too many unanswered questions, he says. What do you make of this episode, first off, Jaemeel? And do you like it as much as Dave?
It is a fantastic episode. Having watched it just today on my flight over here, it is theatrical.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action. A lot of characters get their chance to shine, and it's like it's one of those where it's amazing how everyone has their little bit to play. Like even like this isn't really a Quark episode, but Quark has some really meaty parts that show the civilian side of war. I think this is a fantastic episode. This is one of the best, and my rating will reflect it.
Yeah, I think we all.
I think he might like it as much as me, Jeff. I think.
Well, no, I think he does. But for Dave said this might be his favorite of the whole series, and for me, it's up there. It's definitely up there. I don't know if it's my favorite one. I could rewatch it 100 times in a row and not get bored of it. But there are other episodes I could also say that about. So.
It's no move along home.
It's no. I mean, yeah. Like, what are we even talking about here? It's only just a game.
It's only a game.
Only children start on the first shop.
I wrote that one.
Okay. We have. So then we're in the bar, and that's when we get the prune juice. Give me a prune juice, and Quark laughs in his face, which I love.
Prune juice, chilled.
Uncontrolled laugh.
Yeah, because he originally says, "Let me guess, Klingon blood wine," and he goes, "Prune juice, chilled." Yeah, he just starts laughing at him, and then it walks over, and Bashir and O'Brien are playing darts, and I love the line they say.
I do not play games.
Yes, he says. They go. It's like poker, but with sharp, pointy things.
Okay, but is O'Brien not trolling Worf a little bit there? Where he's like, "I do not play games." He goes, "It's like poker, which is a game, right?" And he goes, "I know you play that with the senior staff, and you never invited me."
Right. And that's why it was weird when Picard said goodbye to me, because I didn't think he knew who the hell I was.
Turned out he did.
I've always liked Transporter Room too. It's my favorite room. Okay. Yeah, so then Kira and Dax show up from their, I don't know what they were playing.
They were in like
Lancelot and
King Arthur.
Yes, and she gets kissed by Lancelot, and she says Dax says to Kira, that's supposed to happen. And she says, but I'm a married woman.
But I was playing a married woman.
Yeah, she was playing a married woman. I mean, she really gets, she's getting into character. Like, at least Kira's kind of like starting to get past the photons and this is all fake and it's BS. At least she's starting to realize it's not about that. It's about having fun with friends.
Did you like Bashir was almost embarrassed to introduce her though?
Major Kira Nerys, our first officer.
It's literally our first officer. He's like, you're way cooler, Worf.
Nice hat.
Yeah. Nice hat. It's kind of the opposite of like how like Kira would have introduced Bashir only 2 seasons ago. It's like this is our chief medical officer, Julian.
Bashir. We're still waiting to see if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah. Okay, then we get a okay. So then Worf goes over to Martok's son, and basically challenges him to like a duel. Basically,
He's like, "You are whatever, Rhoda, son of Martok." He's like, "I am Worf, son of Moog. Let's go!" Right? Is this where he wins over Jedediah Dax? Because I think she's like, "Oh yeah."
I think he already won her over. You missed talking about her embarrassing him.
He had her at hello.
Well, yeah, but she says something to him in Klingon,
right,
and he looks really embarrassed, and they never explain it. And I love this because they knew right away.
He said he's talking about how great Curzon Dax was, and how and she said to him in Klingon, "Yes, but I'm much better looking."
He goes, "I suppose so." Okay.
They don't explain it in there, but it's real Klingon. That's what she says.
Oh, okay.
That's pretty cool.
So wait,
yeah. So then
did you say that's what she said?
Yeah, she says, "But I'm much better looking than he was."
That's what she says.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. Okay, and then we have So then basically Worf kicks his ass and takes his knife, and basically waits for Martok to come get it. And I
wonder what he had to round up to his fake changeling father and go, "Dad, Worf stole my mek'lef at a bar fight. Can you go get it for me?"
I see. I would have taken one of those scenes over a Kasidy 8 scene in this episode. It would have been amazing. But anyway, I digress. I do think they're important. I agree with you guys. Okay, so then Martok comes in, and before he does, Worf puts down a picture of him with Alexander, which is also another favorite moment for me in this episode because it's so ridiculous. Just that he has a picture and he puts it there, and it's just like, and then he says later in the episode he's much happier with his grandparents. It's just like,
yeah, is he though? I like when you think of like when you juxtapose. I can't say the word. You know what I mean? Juxtapose like Sisko and Jake compared to Worf and Alexander. It's quite a contrast in their parenting. Chops, I suppose.
Are you saying, Dave, that we missed out on some double like father-son date episode with Alexander and Jake and Sisko and Worf?
Yeah, I'm saying that. Well, I think Alexander's kind of like much like Keiko is sort of this victim of a character that was set up in the last show that they don't have much use for in this show, but they have to sort of carry it over because it was set up. But so it ends up having this real negative effect on Worf's legacy and character because he is obviously a very absentee father with Alexander.
And he's like okay with it too. He's kind of like resigned to the fact that he's like, you know what, I kind of suck. I know I suck. His grandparents are much better for him. It's not that he does a dangerous job. It's not that he'd be alone, like kind of like Jake is. It's that he is happier without me. is basically what he says. So yeah, it not a good look. I'm sure Michael Dorn probably read this and it was just like, yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of there's an honesty to it that's kind of like there are not good fathers in life, and some of them are people who are high note people. So it gives Worf sort of a vulnerability too that he's not perfect. He does have these chips.
But as a warrior, shouldn't he be like striving to improve and become better, as opposed to like I suck, so I'm just gonna let my parents do all the work?
Oh yeah, no, I don't accept Worf's I don't think his argument is right, or I think he's definitely flawed. I don't think enough of his friends around him challenge him enough on it, but I don't think they know how to. So it's just like, okay, well that's your deal, man. So it's
you do you, Worf.
You do you.
Yeah, he does. Okay, so then he confronts Martok, and Martok kind of confronts him in return, and he says like, "Oh, why did you take my son's sword, dagger? You take it." You take his honor and disrespect him just to have a conversation with me? And he goes, there's no honor there's no honor to be taken that he doesn't have any, basically. He's saying he's a piece of shit, basically, right? And it's That's balls to say, even though it's a changeling, to say to Martok, your son's a piece of shit, is quite ballsy, you know.
I like this whole scene. I like Worf's sternness here, and sort of like, I don't care if you're the top guy,
right?
I'm gonna tell you how it is.
Yeah.
Even though it's not the real Martok, it is like the real first scene we have between Michael Dorn and J.G. Hertzler, and like they will have, I don't know how many scenes they'll have together over the next 4 seasons or 4 seasons, I guess it is, right? Like this is a real beginning of a real strong on-screen relationship.
Right. So Worf kind of like lays out a bunch of things. He goes, the misdeeds of your troops that you've committed. You attack a Cardassian tailor on this station. You hold up a ship without, searching them in Bajoran space, like without provocation. Like he says all these things to him, which are all true.
Yeah, you're a bunch of dicks.
And he's basically calling out him specifically for it. And we know later that it's because the Dominion is trying to create the situation, and nobody ever thinks that. Like they know shapeshifters exist, and Worf doesn't think that he wasn't in the room with the blood scene. Like, he never like suspects that Martok's not Martok. So I do wonder why that is. I mean, but he knows something's wrong, and he's trying to figure it out. He's doing his best Odo detective work, and we'll get to that scene with Odo and Worf later on, which I love. First, let's get to the Dax and Worf fight scene. We have Worf, he's fighting Skeletor for some reason. Not sure why.
He-Man!
Yeah. When Dax shows up, and Dax goes, you know what? Okay. Skeletor is one thing, I'm another. Let's go. And he goes, it would be an unfair fight, and Dax goes, yeah, for you. I love her just her conviction. She's like, you don't scare me, but you do a little bit, but that's why I'm here, because I'm
an expert in Klingon martial arts.
Yeah. She's like I think that there's a reason why they're showing us like why she was doing like the massages, and she's like out doing the Lancelot romantic novels, and then we get the Worf scene with her. Like, I do think that was very on purpose and well done. Ashley, what do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, she's always struck me as someone who would prefer the fighting scene to the Lancelot stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Kevin.
She's both.
But she's always struck me as someone who would enjoy a happy ending from 2 men from a massage.
They're not mutually exclusive.
No. And she's single, ready to mingle. Right. And yeah, she's got the eyes for Worf at this moment, but she doesn't know if he's a cool guy yet. She needs to fight him first to find out.
Yeah, when I first watched the scene back in 1995, I didn't quite figure out that they were setting up this romance, but it's obviously very clearly that they were, and I was a big fan of this relationship. I was sad when it's over. We'll deal with that when it happens, but for now, it's good, So
right, and so they have a bit of a conversation after Worf kind of kicks her butt. Although Dax held her on for a bit.
Did he?
Yeah, well, she let him.
There you go.
Yeah, she goes. She keeps digging at him like, you're a man. He's not just a man. He's a Klingon man. He has like 2 hearts. He's way stronger than a human man.
I am not only a Klingon warrior. I'm a Starfleet officer.
Right.
That sounds like a pull cord from his doll.
Yeah, it does.
And also for Klingons, he's an excellent fighter. Like, he is.
Right.
Yes. Even for really strong Klingon warriors, he's like one of the best of his group, of his species.
Yeah, and pretty good considering he really just like seemed to train against holograms for the majority of his time on the Enterprise. It wasn't like there was a lot of Klingons for him to battle against.
I would have liked to have seen a Worf Picard fencing scene.
Oh,
that would have been good.
Glory.
Well, speaking of glory, the next scene we get the Worf and this old dude. Who's the old dude, Dave, that he's singing?
Oh, I don't know. Like he's some old friend of his dad's. Like I don't know if we even get a name for this guy, but
Uncle.
Yeah. Uncle Tom, whatever his name is, but here's the song.
It is a good story.
Right. So he's just getting hammered drunk to find out like what's really going on. He doesn't I mean like he's having fun with it too, and he is Klingon, so he's kind of reminiscing and stuff, and but he needs to find out what's going on. Does he find out in this scene, or is he just getting drunk? I don't know. I don't feel like he does.
They don't tell him on screen, but yeah, he basically old Uncle Tom there, his dad's old friend, says, "I wish I knew a way to repay your dad." He's like, "There is. You could just tell me what the hell. Why are you here? Why? Don't give me the fake reason. Give me the real reason." He's like, "Okay, I'm going to tell you, because you're going to find out there's a big battle coming."
Right. They're going after the Cardassians. Right? Is that when he finds this out?
Well, we don't find out. The audience doesn't find out even right until he eventually tells Sisko. But yeah, right. There's something kind of like disturbing here, like that Worf finds out, right? Because the next scene is Worf and Odo.
Right, and then so Odo's kind of interrogating Worf about, you met with this Klingon guy, what was your business? And he goes, the security of the station is my business, and your behavior leads me to conclude that you're either you've given up your investigation, in which case it is my duty to take over, or you found something out and you're not telling me, which is my duty to find out what you're doing. And then I love Worf's line. He goes, "I'm not interested in your conclusions." I was like, so great.
I think we've figured out, though, why crime never gets solved on the station, because Odo is too busy watching all the staff and their habits.
Yeah, he's trying to Sherlock Holmes everything. And, Sherlock Holmes, as good of a detective as he was kind of a solo guy and didn't really care about, like, the overall crimes. He was just trying to solve that one crime. So that that had already happened, so I kind of see like, Odo kind of sucks as a in the moment chief of security. He's better. He's a cold case detective, really, at the end of the day. Okay, so then Worf goes to Sisko and says, "Look, Sisko, something's going on. Gowron has engineered this thing that they want to go attack Cardassia because they believe that since the recent change of government that happened on Cardassia is to them is a clear signal that the Dominion has taken over there, and they need to do something about it." Martok has convinced Gowron of this as well, right? Basically, that's what we find out.
Basically, yeah. Like Sisko's like, "Invade Cardassia? Why?" And then Worf breaks it down, all the reasons, and it's like, well, maybe, I don't know, because they like the scene earlier with Garak and Odo did set up that something was sort of amiss on Cardassia, so they don't really know what's going on, and they do know that we know, like, we're everywhere. Cardassia includes everywhere.
Right, and that's what they set up that's true. Okay, so also they, we get a little bit of a personal scene between Sisko and Worf, where they talk about, like, oh, one day, Sisko says, I once thought about resigning. It would have been the biggest mistake of my life. So, think about it, basically. And Worf basically just says, I'll take that into consideration. Did we lose Jaemeel?
Yeah, I think his connection is just kind of...
Well, he's in a hotel.
Yeah, no, I'll do it.
Yeah, he says his camera keeps kicking him out.
Oh, really? Okay, so then we get a boardroom scene, guys, with our changeling Martok. So basically he confronts him and says, like, look, I know you're gonna attack Cardassia. Like, what's going on? And Martok just wants to know who was the one that leaked that. That's all he cares about, which should tell you a lot about what's going on with his Martok character. Like he's very suspicious. What do you guys make of this scene? I actually really like it.
I like the scene. I like the scene before when Sisko tells him he doesn't have to be there. He's like, "No, I prefer it. You own up to what you do, right?"
Right.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to be the rat who's not going to be there. So
yeah, and then Worf in this scene just takes the brunt of whatever Martok has to say and doesn't say anything. You know, the obedient soldier, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely right. And he's kind of like losing respect for Martok as the seconds go by. Like he's starting to realize that like the Klingons are acting without logic,
without honor.
Yeah, well, I went with the logic because to me, like what they're doing makes no sense. You know, you can have honor all you want, but that's what Worf's problem is. You know, he seems to understand like this doesn't make any sense. Like you can't just go invade a country or a planet on a whim, on a maybe. You know, it makes no sense. You know, like you're going to end up costing, you know, thousands of lives, if not millions of lives, on something that you don't know for sure.
Yeah,
and that's a mistake.
Well, and I like a little later on how he keeps referring to his people going back to the old ways. So, yes. And it really is actually a callback to the one with the Argelians.
The Organians.
The it's the one with Core.
The Organians, yeah.
Yeah, it's a callback to that because he says what they'll do is they'll kill all the government officials and then impose their own, and that's what they plan to do on that planet, right?
Right, which made me think a lot of like the American Empire. Like they'll go into a country and then they'll just install like a dictator puppet, and then like, you know, you do what we want, you know, and that's what empires do, and they're the Klingon Empire, you know, so makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think the idea of them going back into more of a villain role, you know, because they had been like all this work had been done to set them up. It's like they're not bad guys anymore; they're the good guys now, and maybe not. Maybe it's more complicated than that, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get the scene after Martok leaves. We see that the Klingon ships are going to warp. They're going right for Cardassia. They're not listening to Sisko, and they don't care what the Federation thinks about any of it.
No.
So they basically go, okay, do we warn Cardassia? And they basically come to the conclusion that they can't, because if they do, they would be throwing the Klingons, you know,
under the bus,
and you know the Cardassians would know it's coming, and then they could prepare and then ambush them. And I love that they focus on Bashir here, because Bashir is the person that should have the moral objection to this. You know, because he's a doctor, like he should care about, you know, preserving life at all costs, you know. But we're going into a war situation, and this is new territory for post TNG Star Trek. You know, like ever since we've had TNG, it hasn't been about this with the Klingons. The Klingons, it's been more about honor and respect and mutual admiration. Now it's like, oh, okay, the Klingons might be an enemy again, and we're kind of going back to the Kirk era. Like I said before, many times before in this podcast, that Deep Space Nine, I think, likes to channel more of the original series stuff than the TNG stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, they do for sure. I just think the whole scene there where he's like, I'm going to go back to my ship, the Martok changeling, where he's like, I'm going to go back to my ship and I'm going to consult with Gowron. And what does he do? He just gets on a ship, cloaks, and he leaves. And he goes, "Hey, begin. We're invading." I thought that, like, considering how this turns out for does anyone hear that?
I was hearing it when you were talking. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's okay.
Oh, I can hear Jaemeel. Can anyone else hear him?
No.
No one else hears you but me, Jaemeel. But only I hear you.
Have you added him in? Doesn't look. He's not like.
He's not in the bottom. But I can hear you, Jaemeel. He'll talk through me, he says.
Okay. Well then, yeah, you'll have to translate. You'll be his Klingon translator. Okay. So then we get a moment here where basically they come up with this idea. At least I think Sisko does, where they say, okay, all right, we can't directly warn the Cardassians, but we could ask Garak to come up and take measurements for me for a suit. And maybe if we're talking about invading the Cardassian Empire at a moment's whim, and he happens to hear that information. Whoopsie.
Yeah, I got a question about that scene. Everyone in that room knows exactly what is happening, including Garak.
Yes.
Why do they have to be so coy about it?
Plausible deniability?
Yeah, exactly
Already
right.
Lying. Just lie if you're asked. Like,
it's easier to lie if you went through the motions where it wasn't a lie. You know what I mean? Oh, no. I don't know.
He really was just getting a suit tailored. You saw what he was wearing earlier.
Yeah, he needed a new suit.
New clothes.
They're all true, especially the lies.
Oh, Garak. Okay. So then we get the scene here where Garak pulls up the Dukat, and this is our first scene with Dukat, and Dukat's really good in this episode, and that's why I think this episode is so great, because like look at all the characters we get Garak, we get Dukat, we get Worf, it's just in Martok, Gowron, like it's
Kasidy Yates.
Kasidy, can't forget Kasidy Yates. We get a lot of Dax, we get a lot of Kira. The only real mainstay character we don't get at all is Jake, so and that's a win. So okay. Yeah, so here we go. Yeah, he's telling Dukat, look, they're coming. And he goes, who? The Klingons, they're coming. And he goes, oh, that's absurd.
Why would they come for us? Yeah,
No.
he doesn't believe it. But and just like how much these two hate each other, it's
shame about the order.
Shame about the order. No, he's like, he just calls him, having women's dresses and all whatever.
Yeah, he says, looks like you'll be having women's dresses for the rest of your life. You reap what you sow is basically, I think, what he's saying to him, which is kind of funny because he does so. Okay, so yeah, then we get they're in ops and they're talking about what's going on. Like the Cardassian fleet is mobilized, the Klingons are meeting stronger resistance, so you'd almost think somebody was warned. Kira's filling us in. This is not going to go well because the Klingons are going to be pissed off, right?
What Sisko did?
Sisko is the one that specifically did this, right? Like it's not like everybody agreed. I think Sisko kind of went, I think we need to do this.
Worf doesn't seem very comfortable with this whole idea, but he goes along with it. He's going to trust the captain, and this is the where we really get to see like how different Worf is going to interact with Sisko compared to Picard, because Sisko is willing to do things that Picard is not willing to do.
Sisko is disobeying orders here, is he not? Didn't Starfleet say do nothing?
Yes, and he did do nothing. He just got it tailored, some measurements.
It'd be hard to imagine Riker doing some of the things that Sisko does either. It's just like.
I even mean the whole plan to go and rescue. And with this is all breach of orders. He's ordered to do nothing.
That's right. And but he does say that the Federation condemns the invasion that the Klingons are doing of the Cardassians. So for him, I feel like he feels like it's justified that he can go on this rescue mission.
He feels like a lot of things are justified. We know that.
He knows that like the Bajoran, he knows he has like amazing job security because he's got this whole emissary to the Bajoran people thing. So is
this a captain with job security?
Yeah, because like to remove him is expensive for the Federation.
He's got tenure.
They also all right, big thing I missed too is they also say that the Chancellor Gowron has removed the Khitomer Accords, which is basically the peace treaty between the Klingons and the Federation, which is a big deal because now they can like literally attack each other, and there's no
we're not friends anymore. We like there's a hostility, like they're not actively at war yet, but that's kind of the cliffhanger to part 1, right? Is that the peace treaty's over? We're not friends anymore.
And that's it. And so now it's all about, okay, how crazy are the Klingons going to get? Is there going to be a Federation Klingon thing? Is this all the Dominion's work? Because they do set up right at the beginning of the episode that Dominion is the big threat, not the Klingons. So, you kind of always kind of think of that, I think, as even on first watch as an audience member, and kind of going, oh, is it the Dominion behind all this? It would make sense.
Federation against Klingon. Klingon against Cardassian.
So maybe the best scene in this episode is when Worf goes on the Gowron ship. It is amazing. Like what is there not to love about this scene? I mean, Worf!
Yeah, it is.
You have a friend in me. You've got a friend.
Because Gowron does not appear in part 1 at all, right? He only shows up here in part 2.
I think that's
right.
The scene. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's this quiet Worf. He says first.
Worf. Worf.
Yes.
But then it turns into
Worf.
You can't make that. Like who? Like that is incredible.
Deeds worthy of song.
Yeah, this whole
Deeds worthy of song.
His performance is unbelievable in this scene.
Glory awaits you on Cardassia.
Just the way
it is good to see you.
just the way he says Cardassia, like Cardassia. Like he really enunciates it. Oh, so good. So basically he says, Worf, join me. He's trying to give Worf glory for his house, something that Worf has bitched about a lot in TNG, and
something he should want.
Yeah, something he should really want, and he's already kind of thinking about resigning from the Federation. He's already kind of thinking like, who am I? Do I need to go embrace my Klingon roots? And all these kind of things are going through his head, and he's been open about them, right? And so when Gowron offers him that, it's tempting. Like, like that's tempting him, but he decides not to, because I think for 2 reasons. One, he's not done with the Federation and his oath to the Federation, and he hasn't formally resigned or anything like that. The second thing I think is he knows that this whole war is stupid, and this invasion stupid, and it's misguided. Maybe is the right word. What do you guys make of that? Dave, we'll go to you.
Yeah, well, I think that like Worf, there's a part of him that's tempted, and it's like I think that earlier with Odo and Worf talking, that Odo says like, hey, I had to like choose between my people and my duty and what I thought was right, and staying and Worf. There's a part of Worf that's like, yeah, I want to go with you, Gowron. Yeah, I want to be like a great Klingon. I want to be this. But deep down, Worf really has a moral code and does things because he believes in right and wrong, and I think that he just can't go along with this. This scene always does make me really sad because it's there was this whole arc with Worf on TNG where he lost his honor, he was discomminated, and Gowron and him they fought the Duras sisters and everything, and and then he restored his house, and then just like that they knock Worf down like a sack of potatoes. They're like, get down there, stupid Worf, you got no more honor. And he's like, not only is he not on the outs with Gowron by the end of this scene, but he's like, we're stripping you of your lands, your titles. I bet Curran's really wishing he had taken Worf's calls earlier.
In the matter of like a minute of like dialogue, he goes, you are my friend, you are an ally, I really respect you. And then on literally his next words out of his mouth are, if you do not back me, I will strip you of your high council seat, your titles, your land, your honor, everything, and you're not going to be welcome on the Klingon homeworld. So basically you might as well go to Earth and hang out with Alexander.
Yeah, I didn't really understand why it ends up there, because it starts off on such a different note. He goes where he's like,
yes, I know. You did what you thought was right.
Right. So he kind of understands where Worf's coming from, but it's almost like Gowron's like, I have to do this now. Like it's almost, he's saying like, I don't know if that's true, but that's how Gowron positions is like, hey, if you go against me, I gotta disown you and I gotta tell everyone you suck.
Yeah.
Well, he's being manipulated by Martok behind the scenes, so I'm sure that Martok has been whispering this in his ear for a while. So when Worf says no, then he's like, Martok was right, and it just makes him angry.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is what makes Gowron kind of a crappy chancellor, is that he's not able to discern the fact that maybe Martok's bloodlust, even if he was the real Martok, is misguided. He just kind of trusted implicitly, like he doesn't trust Worf. He's basically, you're with me or you're against me kind of idea. Where he's not doing that with Martok, because Martok is clearly a good manipulator.
It does also establish how important Worf actually is, that the Chancellor would come to try and convince him specifically to join him.
Yes.
Right? So even though Worf keeps getting knocked down, like they show that he's actually very important.
Well, he's on the High Council. His family has a lot of status.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all
until
that.
now.
Yeah, until now. Okay, so then we get a really, really great scene, a TNG reunion. O'Brien and Worf having a beer and a prune juice.
A synthale and a prune juice.
A synthale and a prune juice. And they talk about, you remember when we rescued Picard from the Borg? He says, how could I forget? It was touch and go there for a while. There were a couple of moments I thought we were all going to be assimilated. He kind of goes like, where are you going with this? And well, Worf goes, I never doubted the outcome.
I always knew.
We were
really
like warriors in ancient saga. We were gonna do it no matter what. I think
sure you did, bud. Sure
Brian's,
you did.
Brian's like, all right, buddy. Okay, sure. Yeah.
I was there too.
And then he says, I've decided to resign from Starfleet. Tells O'Brien this first before anybody else. And O'Brien goes, resign? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? 7 more months.
7 more months? Keiko, where are you?
7 more months.
That's a bar. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, then you're right. He brings up the thing with the Enterprise, like, oh, it'll never be the same Enterprise. The Enterprise E is gonna suck, and Worf already knows it before it's built. So he's like, I'd rather be on this show than be on those movies, even though I'll be on those movies anyway.
Well, he gets both. He doesn't have to choose. He got to be on the show and he got to be in the TNG movies. They just conveniently wrote a reason he was there that day, and now he's in the movie. So.
I don't think that Worf, the character, realized that though. Like, it was basically like the Worf, the character, is leaving his old crew. Like, he's like, okay, yes, I'm done with my old crew. And it'll never be the same. The Enterprise D is the best set, the best.
Damn right.
If I'm not on a balcony with a and I can flip over it sometimes
of a wood panel console thing that's above my captain's head.
The lounge of a Marriott. I don't want to be there.
Yeah. I don't want to be in the corner like Tuvok, pressing the buttons. That's no good. Don't give me that. I need to be in the main shot, right behind the captain. Okay. Then Quark comes over, and he's like 72 decibels, music to my ears. Which again, like, there's so many moments here with Quark that are so great, so well written. This is the way Quark's is supposed to be. This is the way it's meant to be, and that's because the war is going on, I think, right? It's a little bit, there's less suspicion, and Quark likes that. It's good for business.
Well, yeah, and versus Klingons staring at him creepily to kill him.
Yeah, well, he doesn't.
Worf one more time.
Yes, he does. What does he say? What does he say to Worf?
He says, now that all the Klingons are gone.
All the Klingons are gone, President Company excluded, and that hurts Worf's feelings because
it does.
Worf is going through this moment where he's like, do I want to be Klingon or do I want to be like a Federation officer? Like, what do I want to be? So makes sense, I guess. But he goes, what do I care? All he ever drinks is prune juice, which is a great line.
Prune juice, chilled.
Okay. So then Sisko basically goes, I'm not going to take your resignation, Mr. Worf, and you can shove it. And you're working for me now, and I'm not Picard. You don't tell me what to do. I tell you what to do. And I love Sisko so much.
I'm not Picard.
I'm not Picard. He's not. Picard would have been like, "How are you feeling, Worf? What do you need? Take 2 weeks, come back. We'll talk about it then." That would have been Picard's way of dealing with it.
Not Sisko. He'd be like,
Commander, I said launch torpedoes.
"You're here to kill, and I'm going to put you to work."
Yeah.
Sisko's like, or Worf's like, "Okay."
And not only I'm going to get you to kill you, I'm going to get you to kill your own race of people. It's pretty hardcore.
I got to fight some Klingons, and I need you to fight with me. And I think Worf's like, "Yeah, I get it." A little bit too. Like I'm needed right now. My little pity party is not really helping the situation.
Right. So then Sisko calls up Dukat and goes, "Hey, I was looking for someone in the civilian government. Like, well, why are you answering?" He goes, "I am the civilian government now." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I saw a good position. Seemed like a good idea." He's like, "It sounds like
there was a coup happening. I jumped on board. What do you think?"
Yeah, exactly. He's like, "It sounds like you jumped on board when the getting was good." And he goes, "Yeah, that's about right."
It sounded like a good idea at the time.
Again, like a great scene. There's no scene really in this episode where it fails or the dialogue's bad or anything. Like, it's so well done. Okay, so then we get Sisko. Did I miss anything in that scene? Is there anything we learned that's very important?
No.
Something with the Datapa Council? No. Okay.
None of it's important.
None of it's really that important. It was just a good little quip between the two guys. Okay. Then we have Kasidy Yates stops Sisko in the thing. So she's like, "You're going on some kind of mission?" And he goes, "Yeah, the Defiant leaves in a few minutes." She goes, "Well, why can't you tell me about it?" And he goes, "I'll be back in 4 or 5 days. Stop asking questions." She's like, "But I'm leaving tomorrow." He's like, "What about our baseball game and stuff?" And their timing is terrible. Like, he's like, "I gotta go kill Klingons. You gotta go transport things to the Maquis, but we don't know that yet." There's all this stuff going on. Which again, this scene is I do like it because again, what Kevin said earlier, where like it shows us the civilian part of war. And I think that's important. Which
I think for Sisko and Kasidy, he's like a military man, and they're trying to balance that, like, sort of how does he have a relationship while he's fighting this war and doing this job and whatever, right? Because he is an important person in this particular section of the galaxy.
So they hop on the Defiant for the second time in the episode. Well, I guess it's the next episode, but you get my point. So they throw up the cloaking device, even though they're in the Alpha Quadrant. The doctor says, "Hey, like, it's a good idea. Like, Romulan said, don't use that in the Alpha Quadrant, And he goes, "I'm not gonna die on this mission, Julian."
He's like, "Yeah, do you want? I'm the one commanding the ship, and we got to fly through a bunch of Klingon warships ready to kill us. Are you making this call?" He's like, "I won't tell the Romulans, sir. I won't tell Romulan Seska."
I always find it interesting that they give that line to Julian, not like Kira or
even Worf
or Worf. Like, they always seem to give that line to Julian because I think Julian's the guy that, one, he's the moral conscience more often than not, and two, he's like the annoying guy. He's like, "Are you sure you want to be doing that, Benjamin?"
Oh,
so,
dear.
Yeah. Oh dear. So all that kind of stuff, I think it makes sense why they give it to him, but it's weird because he's kind of like, again, like, to go back to the original series, he's kind of like the McCoy, where he's like, "Jim, what are you doing?" So I do like it. It works for me.
He just tell off Bashir. It's par for the course.
It's on brand for Bashir.
It was on brand for both of them, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they fly and they find a huge debris field of Cardassian ships, and they're like, "Oh, are there any survivors?" And Dax is like, "Well, we have to decloak to use our sensor array." and Bashir is like, well, we should do that. Like, we have to save people. Like, that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do, right? And Sisko goes, nuh-uh. We can't do that. We have to keep going. And he's like, I know it's objectionable, Julian, but listen, you're not in charge, so fuck you. Basically. Right? Am I wrong? Is that what happens?
That's exactly what happens. And I think that again, he's not Picard. I think Worf, if he's not figuring it out by now, he's a few examples into this like little flight there are that you should be figuring it out piece by piece. That Sisko will make more tactically sound decisions versus emotionally or morally driven ones, or purely ethically driven ones. Although I think that he has a certain moral ethical code that he won't break. It's just very loose comparatively.
I always find it interesting that Sisko will be we're not there yet, but when like the episode where Sisko's lecturing Dukat and Dukat's lecturing Sisko about like past atrocities, I'm like, Sisko's kind of like the wrong guy to to be telling Dukat what everything you did was awful. Like he because it's what you just said, Dave. Like if it's tactically sound, Sisko will do it. Even though morals be damned, basically.
Above all else, he's a pragmatist.
Yeah.
Will this work?
Evidence! He wants evidence!
Which makes that episode so great because Dukat is basically, you're just as much of a hypocrite as me. So I do love that is Sisko is so different from like the Picard, even Kirk.
Evidence!
So Worf basically says to Sisko, like, look, we can't decloak because if we do, there's going to be birds of prey all over us. That's what they do. They blow everything up and then they go cloak and they wait until somebody comes and then they kill that person too.
Did they say that doesn't sound very honorable? And he goes, in war, there's nothing more honorable than victory.
Right. Yeah. That's again what Bashir says. He says, yeah, like that's not very honorable. Like the Klingons are all about honor. He's like, look, when's war, Klingons don't give a shit about honor.
Well, yeah, that like rules of war or somehow like some kind of chivalry. That's not really what their honor is about. Because we see that they obviously use cloaked ships. They're willing to do some less than upfront battle tactics.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so then so basically they go in and they go and they save Dukat, right? That's what happens in the next scene. We get a lot of war firing phasers, which nobody ever really did on Defiant. So we're like, we got our phaser guy. Finally.
Well, yeah, we're seeing the Defiant really like in a battle, not for the first time, but it feels like it in a lot of ways. This whole ablative armor thing has to be set up where they have to take down the shields and beam them aboard, and that the Defiant can actually take quite a bit of abuse even without its shields, which is another thing they kind of establish here. And I think that this whole this was like the beginning of them building this bond with Dukat, which they they'll continue throughout season 4, only for him to like completely turn on them in season 5, right? So there's a lot of things going on here.
So then they go to beam Dukat's him and all of the people on his ship, and then he says to Bashir, like, prepare to receive casualties, but you're gonna take blood screenings of all these Cardassians. And Worf turns around and goes, blood screenings? He goes, just in case Martok was right. And again, another great moment where it's like, okay, I like Sisko. He's always thinking tactically.
He's like, they could be right.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas Worf didn't think that. He's like, that's not what Picard would do. He would be saying, no, we can't do this. The ethical and moral outrage.
Yeah. Evidence. Okay. Sisko says to be damned with all that stuff. And then we got a great scene where Bashir is going to put the blood injection or whatever into Dukat, and Dukat goes like, what, is this really necessary? I'm offended by all of this. And Bashir's just like, I'm offended by you. Open up your arm, I'll make the friggin' guy do it for you. Which again, it was a good moment for Bashir. At least they showed some backbone, and Bashir's finding his own, and it's good.
Yeah. Who was in command of Terrak Nor years ago? Go Dukat. Remember that?
Yeah. So then Dukat comes to the bridge of the Defiant, and he complains immediately about the blood screenings. And Dax goes, "You owe me dinner." And he goes, "What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about?" She goes, "I bet Sisko that you would start complaining before you thanked him for saving him." And Sisko goes, "She was right." So, yeah.
Right, but they were establishing like sort of like this uneasy friendship between Dukat and Sisko, right? Like it furthers not just between Dukat and Sisko, but Dukat and the rest of the crew, like the greater DS9 crew.
And then immediately Dukat calls out the fact that Worf's on the bridge. He's like, "What is this Klingon doing on the bridge?" He's
You
like,
know, a Klingon. You got a dirty Klingon here on this ship. He's like, he's not the one you should be worried about.
Right, and he says, and then he puts on the aft viewer, and then you see 2 Klingon ships in hot pursuit of the Defiant. And Dukat goes, "Why don't you just use your cloaking device?" And Worf, because you got destroyed saving you.
Saving your dumb ass. Your dumb cardi ass.
On it too. Like,
right. Okay. So then we go to Quark's and we see Garak sitting down to have a nice bottle of Kanar. It's on the house, Quark says. Garak goes, "How uncharacteristically generous of you." and
Quark how uncharacteristically generous of you.
Yeah. And Quark says, "I'm in an uncharacteristic mood." Besides, I've got 80 cases of this stuff and no one to drink it.
Yeah.
Be brave.
Okay, so yeah, they talk about
Cousin Gala.
Yeah, Cousin
Gala owns his own moon.
Right. He says, "Quark, I've got weapons you never even seen before." So he goes, "Do I take his advice?" No. He says, "And why not?" Because I'm a people person.
Because I'm a people person.
I like interacting with my customers, unless they ask for prune juice.
Talking to each other, getting to know one another.
Okay. Do we miss anything else with that?
No, we get there's that scene, Jeff. Like the worst part is that his only hope for salvation is the Federation.
And the worst part of it is my only hope for salvation is the Federation.
Right.
And then the root beer.
I love he drinks the root beer. Oh, that's vile.
Yeah, that's vile. This is repulsive.
Yeah. I know.
It's so bubbly and cloying and happy. Just like the Federation.
Just like the Federation.
It's insidious.
It's insidious.
Just like the Federation.
Yeah, that's might be the best moment Garak has on the show is him and Quark doing this, talking about the Federation. But like they would rather drink root beer than have to deal with like the Dominion or the Klingons.
Well, they're admitting that they're kind of getting used to the Federation types, even though they think that they're a bunch of do-gooders and a bunch, like whatever, cloy and happy and bubbly, but that now they're hoping that they'll save them from these Klingons, that they don't want, that
they don't want it to change, because they know what's on the other side is worse. That they'd rather the do-gooders than the do-badders, basically.
Right, the do-badders.
That's a new term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so then the Defiant comes back to the station, and the Klingons show up, and they're like, "Okay, we're bringing our whole army." So
Well, he's like, 2 ships against the station, and they're like, "Nope, they got friends." And we see this massive Klingon fleet.
And
how much better are Federation ships than everyone else? They're sending 6 ships against all of these Klingons.
Plus the station.
But still, like, the Defiant is always against a fucking army of people. Like, how good are all these Federation ships compared to all the other powers?
It depends on... They're not that much better, presumably.
Wouldn't think so.
I think they're better than they kind of make a point that the Klingon ships I don't think are very strong shields wise and like their engines and stuff, and I think that's the difference, and maybe not their weapons, but it seems like it's very easy to blow up a Klingon ship compared to a Federation ship, and I think it has to do with their shields. And once we get into the Jem'Hadar, it seems much more difficult to blow their ships up than like a Klingon ship. So I do think they make a point of like that certain species have different capabilities, and I do think the Federation seemed to reign supreme in the Alpha Quadrant.
Well, yeah, like we saw here, like the Ningfar is like the big Klingon ship. That's like their most powerful ship. And then they have these Vorcha ones, which are like, we saw those in TNG quite a bit. And then these Bird of Preys they're not that hard to destroy. It seems like they're more like almost like little, they travel in packs and strike and have smaller hit and run type of missions.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so where were we?
The battle.
The battle. Oh no, first we have to have our Mexican standoff. Okay, so but first let's do the Bashir Odo scene. He says, okay, everybody's Bashir goes, look, lots of casualties are going to be coming in. I need you guys all ready. And then Odo shows up. He says, Doctor, what's going on? I just wanted to let you know that I'll be assigning a security unit to the infirmary for your protection. And Bashir goes, well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But he's like, I'm going to have a lot of wounded people in here. The last thing I need is deputies like in my way. And Odo goes, I understand. I do suck at my job. He goes, okay, just do me a favor. Don't count on that blue uniform to protect you. So, watch your back, basically, is what he says to him. Right?
Yeah. It's setting up later on when Bashir will phaser somebody.
Right. And they do set up early in the episode that, like, Bashir's he's a save people at all costs, not really a fighter. And the fact that he does have to phaser someone, I think, is showing you that war can turn even those people into a killer, right? Even though he's he's defending himself, but you get the point, right?
Yeah, it's not my favorite scene in the episode.
No.
I get the sentiment of it. It's just I don't know if the execution is fantastic. Okay, so then we get a Quark and Odo scene before. It says, he goes, "This is my disruptor pistol, the only one I carry. It was I used it on my Ferengi freighter
when he was the ship's cook.
When he was the cook, yes, which is kind of interesting because because I don't think he ever used it." And then he opens it, and it's just a note. It says, "Quote: I used parts of your disruptor to fix the replicators. We'll return them soon, Rom." Which is a great. We get a Rom reference in this episode, but he's not in the episode. I think is really good because Jake's not mentioned. Okay.
No, he's not.
Yes. Cassidy said when Sisko was leaving for this mission to Cardassia, Cassidy said, "Jake told me you were leaving on a mission."
Oh, true. So he is there. He is on the station.
Yeah.
They just don't show him. Okay.
Right.
Which is odd because, like, you think they put him in at least one scene in the bar somewhere, I always wonder, like, why isn't Jake
girl in the background?
Like, why isn't Cyril Lofton in a scene like an episode like this? There's
no room for him in this episode.
Just as a throwaway line where, like, with the Cassidy Yates stuff, like, it's just strange to me that he's a main cast member, but he's not even in the episode.
Well, the next episode's gonna be all about Jake, so don't worry.
Maybe that's why that's what they promised him. They went, Sirach, look, okay, next episode's all about you. This episode,
yeah. Guess what? We're gonna give all of your best stuff that we've ever done with your character, and we're gonna bring in Tony Todd to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Tony Todd's gonna crush it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna be so great for you.
So good. Everyone's gonna say, "What a great performance
by Tony Todd."
By Tony Todd of Jake
He
Sisko.
played Jake Sisko like Sirach Lofton never could.
He did. So true. Okay, so so then we get the the moment where Garak and Dukat kind of start talking to each other, and then Garak kind of turns around and goes, "Who would have ever thought us fighting together?"
Yeah, like I liked that relationship early on, and like when I remember watching this at the time, and obviously everything to come with Dukat hasn't happened yet, but you were kind of like, okay, like these like former villains, like sort of this rogues gallery was sort of forming around the Deep Space Nine principal cast, right? Like the Garricks and Rom and some other ones like Morn, I guess, and also Dukat. That these were sort of like these not. They weren't the heroes, but they were sort of like an eclectic bunch that the Deep Space Nine crew would come across. And you thought like Dukat was going to be part of that, but ultimately he just, he goes the other way. He goes full villain.
He does, and that made sense. They kind of ran out of the villains, and they could have used Wayoon, I guess, as the big bad at the end, but that wouldn't have been very good. Or even the female founder. Yeah, but they have a great little exchange where, like, basically Garak says, "Oh, I'm sure your concern is strictly motivated by patriotism," and Dukat's like, "Wow, the council members love my patriotism," and all this kind of stuff. And yeah,
yeah, it's a good banter between them. I think that Garak later tells Odo that he wishes he had killed him during this fight. Whereas he says is,
"You'd shoot a man in the back." Well, it's the safest way, isn't it?
it is true. He's not wrong. Okay, so then you get the then we get the great scene here between Sisko and Garak and Martok together. And basically Garon's like, "I'm going to take your station. Like, you have betrayed us. We have no choice. We must take him by force." He's also wants some prisoners. He wants the Cardassian count. He's like, "Give us the Cardassians, or we're taking them by force, and we're taking you down." Right, because he can't have them, free, because if they come back to Cardassia, they could do a coup and take back the planet, which the Klingons can't.
No, yeah, that's not they're going to take out these guys. That's their move. So,
and so then we get, which is kind of ironic, because the Dominion will end up, working with the Cardassians and those same people. Okay, so then Sisko says, like, "Look, we got 5,000 torpedoes. We've been preparing for a year for Dominion invasion.
Right now, I've got 5,000 photon torpedoes armed and ready to launch. I can assure you, this old cat may not be as toothless as you think."
Yeah, because Garak's like, "You're like a toothless old Krishna cat.
You're like a toothless old Krishna cat, trying to frighten us
with your roar."
Which is, again, great peak Garak. You can't get any better. So and he goes, Martok goes, it's an illusion of photons and blah blah blah. And what is he said? Do you have that one, Dave? Where
No, I don't. Well, just what he says, like
geranium shadows and
it's geranium shadows and whatever else. But this is also like where, like, I felt like the show really gained teeth, because in the first 3 seasons you get this feeling like the station's run down, it can't do anything, it's always broken, like O'Brien's fighting with it, and now it's like, oh no, we did all these upgrades. They keep alluding to the upgrades they've done, and now the station's like a power.
It's a fortress.
Right? It's a fortress. Like that's hard to take. So like, I think that I prefer when, like, main characters in Star Trek, when their equipment and their technology is more state of the art, versus in other versions of Star Trek where they maybe give them like more adversity behind what the technology is.
Yeah, that's fair, because, like, I do think that sometimes, like, they'll get, like, if they're in a crappy shuttlecraft, it's like, well, this is not very exciting,
Well, yeah, I know. I think it was better when, like, Voyager, like, oh, we're going to enhance our ship with Borg technology now, and we're going to build the Delta Flyer. And I think versus, like, saying, like, I don't know, we're running out of spare parts. It's the burn, and there's not enough fuel to get somewhere. Like, I find that less interesting.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay,
so then we get the classic line from Garon, the Chiju Ja Vam Ja Chak.
I didn't pull that one. Is that the today is a good day to die?
Yeah, he goes, he said, "Today is a good day to die." Which, a great delivery by Worf. To me, that is the moment that defines this episode for me, is that exact moment, because right after that, the battle starts. And this is the best, because First Contact hasn't happened yet. That movie hasn't come out, right?
Right. Not for 3 years, or a year and a half, I think.
Right. So for me, this battle was the best thing Star Trek ever did space-wise until the opening scene of First Contact.
There was nothing that came even close to this. Like, when they did this in 1995, when we watched this, like, I remember watching this with a friend of mine back then, and it was just like, it was incredible that they were even doing anything like this, because the space battles they did in TNG were not impressive. They might have one or two ships there.
It was always Romulans.
It's always Romulans, and it's usually Worf telling you, "Yeah, there was a lot of shooting off screen. Oh, now they're doing this. Now we're flying."
One or two ships, and you'd see one or two shots, and that's it.
Tops, and there wouldn't be and there would be barely any movement to the ships. Like they would look. The ships always used to look like they were so slow and didn't move very much. And here we see the ships are flying. They're going. To have that many ships on camera at once was like unheard of. Like, and I don't think this is all digital effects yet. I think a lot of this was practical still. So
I don't know. I would imagine Industrial Light and Magic did this for them. I guess we'll find out in fun facts, but
it was just like Deep Space Nine had never like I think even when you remember when they did the battle where the Romulan and the Cardassian fleet attacked the Founders' fake homeworld, I guess, in the Dias Cast and Improbable Cause. Like that battle was not that impressive. Most of that we didn't get to see on screen. And here they go the other way. They're like, yeah, we're going to show it. And not only that, but we're also going to have like physical in-person battles.
Yeah. And it's a lot more straightforward than like when you're in a ship too, because like Sisko literally like he goes like pull out the photon torpedo things and they come out and then it's just like on my mark, fire, and then it's just like literally like 2 minutes of just pew 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 pew, like, which is awesome. Like
I love the hand-to-hand combat in ops too, because everybody seems like they're struggling, like it's really tough, and Worf is just cutting through people like butter, like they're not even standing there.
Yeah. He shoots like 3 guys at once. He's the Chewie of Star Trek. I mean, he really is. He never misses. So Worf's not gonna screw up, that's for sure. Oh, I love. Do you love like when the medical officer comes in to try to save O'Brien and he just gets pwned, and then O'Brien's like, oh, all right, and then he shoots him anyway.
This battle is intense. It goes on for quite a long while. Even by today's standards, this is like there's a lot of like ships blowing up, and Sisko's like odd number launchers, go. He's like even number launchers, go. And then he's like phasers, and then Worf's like, oh yeah, give me the phasers, and he's blowing up ships left and right. Don't mess with us, right? I thought that was, I don't know. Well, they show me so excited.
It's not just in ops where they have the hand-to-hand. Like you get like the Odo, which I don't know why it matters if a Batlift got Odo. I mean, he's liquid. I'm like, what's he worried about? Second, and then so Bashir saves him, and then we get the Garak where he's like, I really find this hand-to-hand combat quite distasteful.
Yeah, Bashir, come on, man. Like you're in Starfleet.
Kira gets stabbed, even though they don't really show any blood.
Now, I remember watching that back then and going, are they going to kill off Kira? Because is there room for both her and Worf on the show? Turns out there was. But I think that there was like some question of like, and they talked about this in the documentary. Nana said she was threatened by his entry into the show that they could replace her with him as a permanent first officer, which luckily they never did. Because I don't think that's really the role he plays in the crew.
No, and Kira has some fantastic episodes that if we didn't get those, that would have sucked.
Yeah.
Did you guys also notice when like O'Brien gets absolutely like just destroyed? Like he gets beat, he gets hit across the head, and he just goes like he kind of gets knocked out cold before he even hits the ground. Like I think like it was actually like Kevin was saying like really good acting from. But like it looks really real. Like it looks like he literally got knocked out, and so like those are the type of like little choices I think they made to make it not look so like Star Trek fights. Often you're like that's silly, like you get like a Kira, like 100-pound woman like beating up like this giant man, and it's just like that's not realistic. Like she might get a few shots in, but like come on, like even I don't care how well trained she is, like at a certain point physics take over.
I thought that they did a good job with the choreography in this one, like with the fighting. Like I thought it felt believable, it felt real.
Yes. Right. No, I agree. But like sometimes in Star Trek, you guys have to admit, like they'll do hand-to-hand combat scenes, and you're just like, come on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all of the original series.
Yeah.
Yes, all of original
Even
series.
this show hasn't been very good for physical hand-to-hand fighting in the first 3 seasons. It's like the action takes a turn here.
It's always Kira too. Like Kira's always the one doing the hand to hand in the first 3 seasons that we've watched so far. And now that we have Worf on the show, like again, I see why she was threatened by him because it's like Worf's the badass. He's cutting through people like butter, and Kira's getting stabbed. Like I get it. Like it makes sense.
Well, I think he was the right addition. He was exactly kind of what this crew needed. Because like I think that he gives a dynamic to Dax. Like obviously Dax and him could go up, not just the romantic part, but just that they had this sort of connection from the Klingon martial arts, I guess, and the cultural stuff that they like. And you know, I think he also brings a different. He challenges Kira to step up and be that first officer, because I don't think anyone else is challenging her position. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave, because Bashir's not taking her job, O'Brien's not taking her job.
Dax.
Not Dax. Dax is the one that you think could, you know, but she's a science officer. She's not really in command. So like
she's got her very specific, like I'm like Sisko's advisor, old friend, right? And so she does have a leadership place in the hierarchy, but she's not like I think that Worf's addition, Worf goes into conflict with most of the other characters, like Kira and Odo in particular. And I think that friction serves the story in a lot of ways.
Okay, so then we get the stand down with Gowron, where you know, basically Sisko says like, "Look, Klingon against Cardassian. You played the clip earlier. Federation against Klingon," and then you know he basically convinces Gowron to stand down, and Martok goes, "Well, we can still win," you know. And Gowron basically says, "Shut up, Martok.
We can still win." It's a good scene because it's actually Worf convincing Gowron mostly to stop, right?
Yes.
And that plays in back to the you need a Klingon to deal with the Klingons.
Yeah, he says it here.
Kahless himself said, "Destroying an empire to win a war is no victory.
And ending a battle to save an empire is no defeat."
Look, they're besties. They're finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we are friends. And maybe I didn't mean what I said earlier about taking your land. Actually, no, I am. I am serious about that.
But if Worf hadn't been there, then maybe Sisko doesn't talk him down.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, so yeah, okay. And then Sisko's like, yeah, but I got 6 ships. You can take our station, but we got 6 more ships coming. And when they show up, there'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, well, I thought it was good. I liked like the whole like the growling at each other, like the whose dick's bigger between Gowron and Sisko. Like I thought it was a fun little barrage they had. I thought that like Gowron had never worked with most of this cast, and the one he had worked with, Quark, he has no interactions with here at all, right? So it's other than Worf, of course, but you know, I thought that he becomes like a really fun antagonist for this Deep Space Nine crew, you know, throughout this 4th season, and then he becomes like sort of this anti-hero for like, you know, the other couple seasons afterwards. But
yes, okay, so that's kind of like the end of that, and then we kind of get the Sisko like you know, his ending speech here over like voiceover where he's talking about, you know, everything seems to be returning to normal, like everything's kind of safe again, and we kind of have averted disaster for now. And then we get the scene with Worf where he's looking at his old uniform, and this is kind of like I think a big part of why I think Dave likes this episode so much as well is that the uniform, he's saying goodbye to his old uniform, and he's picking up the new uniform. Am I right, Dave?
Well, I thought, okay, like, yeah, to Ashley's point, he had been in red before, but I also like this idea that these characters were all individuals, and they are like all of these individual characters, and that, like, you know, he's gonna go a different way. He was gonna, like, I didn't really want Next Gen to end, you know. I wish it had gone on longer, and all these years we got with Michael Dorn and Worf on this show extended his stories and his arc quite a bit.
Whose story do you wish on TNG we had gotten more of?
Not Data. I think we had enough Data.
Right.
But
Not really LaForge, maybe a bit. I don't know how much LaForge.
Maybe, well, but even more Riker. I thought that Riker becoming a captain was obviously the next obvious thing for him, because that's kind of set up even from the first season with Riker, where he's like, but you're a first officer, but you're really meant for the captain's chair one day, Riker. And he keeps like turning down the command because he likes being, Picard's number one.
And he likes being around Deanna, let's face it.
And Deanna works here too, and it's not hurting things. Yeah. But like Worf was this character that was like, he should keep moving up. I thought like promoting him, and I was excited when he got promoted in Generations. I don't like when these characters like are statically still. I think like Sulu becoming a captain was a good thing too, where there's a different philosophy that no, it's better. It's more about keeping the particular team together, and then and them going on adventures. I don't think so much. I think like the mixing matching. I think like getting 7 of 9 on Picard was kind of a good move.
Right. Okay. Then right. And I think like what we get here at the end, where Sisko basically says to Worf, like, look, I could resign, I could run away to the Nyberite Alliance or whatever it is, and he's like, that wouldn't change who I am. That wouldn't change who I want to be. He's like, and if you need to go do that, then do it, basically. But he's like, I don't think that's what you want. It's kind of what he says to him, right?
Yeah, he's like, I was going to do what you did. I was going to quit. I was going to go to civilian life and try to do it. And I thought, but it wasn't right. I'm glad I didn't. And I think that you'll regret it too. So, and why Sisko goes out of his way to do this isn't, he seems to take a liking to Worf, right? Like, it's interesting that's like, I think the decisions that Sisko makes here, are interesting. They are because they had to bring in Worf, and there's real practical behind the scenes reasons. But what we get here is like Sisko is like, hey, the only Klingon on Starfleet. What if I got him here to help me deal with this Klingon crisis? And not only that, I have this Dominion threat on the horizon. I got all kinds of other things. I got Key breathing down my neck. Having a guy like Worf would really strengthen my team. And we talk, saying like they were a good team, but they brought in like a ringer first baseman.
They needed him though. Like their team needed the ringer first baseman. It's not like they already had one. Like they needed him because and Sisko, like the character Sisko, I think really understands that, because he looks at his team and he goes, well, like, look who I got. I got Bashir, who's always going like, we gotta save the people. We got Dax, who's kind of like my confidant, but she's very busy doing other things. She's like,
other things, other people.
Yeah, with other people and other things. Kira is got a lot of baggage, and there's a lot that I don't know if I can really trust her with everything, especially when it comes to hard decisions. I need someone I can trust with hard decisions. And he's noticing in Worf that he's been kind of babied and coddled by Picard. And he's like, I need to break this guy down. I need to make him a good commander, because right now he sucks. And he's like, I need him better. I need him more like me, less like Picard. He's lame. Right? Like that's kind of how I take to how Sisko views Worf, and he's like, I will. He's young. He's a grasshopper. I will mold him in my.
How much older is Sisko than Worf? Not much older.
Oh, probably not much. No, but I think he looks at him as like a junior commander in that way. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think putting like here, he's like, you look good in red. And he's like, it feels good. I have a lot to learn about command. He's got a hell of a teacher. I thought that I think just seeing like he's not just going to be the security chief anymore. Okay, next gen's over, but I still get my character continues here. The whole idea of this connected universe obviously is something I was big into back then, still am, although we take a lot of it for granted now.
Ashley, were you gonna say something?
Well, I was gonna say I think Sisko also sees that he was for many years the tactical officer of the flagship of the Federation, so maybe putting him on the front line of this war is a good idea.
Yes, that too. I agree. Yeah, and he doesn't really have a great tactical officer, and he has a lot of threats, like Dave was just mentioning, like the Maquis, the Dominion, the Klingons, the Cardassians. They're all surrounding him. And
who did Starfleet send me? Eddington.
My lucky
Looney. He's Lucky Looney, and he's like, Eddington sucks. I don't need this guy. He's never going to command a goddamn thing around here. And Odo is also, I can't have it be him. So like he really needed this character. I mean, yeah, it's so obvious that once he was there, it really changed the show.
Yeah, I think it was tough for them. I think that behind the scenes there were real fears and things. I think but I think that even the competition that he brought to the show was good, and it challenged the writers in a whole different ways. And we got a lot less boring episodes, I think, because remember how we see episodes like even that third season, which was an improvement from the first 2 seasons, but there was still a lot of boring episodes that were like, ugh, I could do without this.
They hadn't made Sisko cool yet either. Like Sisko was kind of lame. Like and he needed, I think Avery Brooks especially needed to look comfortable for him. Like he needed to go full hawk. He needed the bald head.
He had to grow up almost.
Yeah, that, and also like he needed I think he wanted the pips. I think he wanted the 4 pips. Like there was a bunch of things, but I think the confidence wasn't there for the first 3 seasons. Like it is even in this episode.
Because this seems like the time to bring in Worf too. It seems like if you brought him in earlier, it's probably not. It's probably too soon. Because we also see here Sisko got promoted, but also Dax got promoted to lieutenant commander. I guess that happened in between, and also Bashir got promoted to full lieutenant.
Right. What was Bashir before?
Lieutenant junior grade.
Lieutenant junior grade. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for this episode. Should we get into some fun facts?
Why don't we?
Okay. All right. Michael Dorn summarizes this episode by saying, quote, "The Klingons had finally gone nuts, basically," end quote. Which is pretty accurate. Yeah. This was the third time a large scale change was made to the opening credits of we didn't even mention that, guys, of a Star Trek series. Yeah. This is the first episode where the intro is much better. They have there's so much great detail. They have the Defiant going through the wormhole this time now instead of a stupid shuttlecraft.
We saw the Defiant. It breaks off, but it's also we have Captain Sisko written on the first time, because they didn't even do that for the last episode of season 3. It was still said Commander. And it's where his name comes up in the title sequence is sooner, right? Because we're kind of above the station, and then then it goes also starring Rene Auberjonois from the down below angle. But in the first 3 seasons, they're both from the down below angle.
Yeah, well, my favorite part about the new intro is if you notice there's orange guys on jetpacks fixing the pylon.
Is that not in the first 3? No, those guys were there.
That was added for this one. So every time I watch the intro and I don't see those guys, I go, "Oh, it's not as good." Yes, the Defiant's cool and everything, but
also when Michael Dorn's name came up third build, I was like, Michael Dorn.
A 12-year-old, 13-year-old Dave Mader was very, very excited.
Very.
Yes. Okay, so this was the first was during Star Trek when they changed the theme song to include a singer. The second was during Next Gen when they moved the opening sequence from Earth's solar system to new previously unseen planets. And the third was in the beginning of season 4 of DS9 when they added ships coming and going from the station to make the station seem more active, as well as a faster paced and more heroic version of the theme song. So actually they did change the theme song too. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more upbeat in this version.
Cool. Okay, so this takes place after the event in Generation. Sisko references the crash. Okay, so we got that. When Worf and Jadzia first meet, he says to her that Curzon Dax was an honored name among his people, and she replies to him in Klingon. When asked what she said by Kira, she replies, "It loses something in translation." What she said was, "Yeah, but I'm a lot better looking than he was." Yeah, right. You are correct, Ashley. Okay, promotions. In addition to Sisko's in-story promotion to captain, Dax is promoted to lieutenant commander. Okay, so we get that. In Star Trek 101, Terry J. Erdman and Paula M. Block lists The Way of the Warrior as being one of the 10 essential episodes from Star Trek DS9, which I would agree with that. Worf's first appearance on Deep Space Nine. This episode opens with the dedication title card to a series crew member, Greg Duffy Long, one of the writer's assistants, and Ronald W. Smith, a hairdresser who had both recently passed away. So I did notice that when I popped this episode on again, that there was a dedication. This is the first appearance of Martok. Although this is Worf's first appearance at Deep Space Nine, he had previously appeared in Deep Space Nine in Birthright Part 1 from TNG. When Captain Sisko meets Worf, he mentions the USS Enterprise and how sorry he is that it takes place the first reference of the feature film involving the TNG cast. In that film, the Enterprise is destroyed, the drive section explodes, and the saucer section crashes and lands on Viridian 3, damage beyond salvage. According to the stardate 49011, the events of this episode take place at the same time as Non Sequitur, a Voyager episode. No one cares. Yeah. At the end of season 3, the writers had planned on doing a Changelings on Earth storyline, which would end on a cliffhanger. However, Paramount said that they didn't want a cliffhanger ending, forcing the writers to go in a different direction. This seems to happen a lot in Deep Space Nine, where they're like, do this, or they want to do this, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. Okay.
Do it later.
Do it later. We'll do it later. When Odo stops Drex from harassing Morn, he insults Odo in Klingon. What he said was, "Does your mother let you talk to adult men?"
That loses something in translation.
Loses something. The holographic skull fighter in the holosuite, Skeletor, was originally played by stunt coordinator Dennis Madalone. Madalone took a hit in the eye in the fight scene with Michael Dorn, and stunt actor Tom Morga took over for him. So both stuntmen are present in the final aired version of the fight scene. Oh, they didn't like that. They had to pay 2 guys forever. Okay. Worf's claim to Dax that he has even tried to contact Emperor Kahless is a reference to the Next Gen episode Rightful Heir, in which a clone of the historic Kahless is installed as a kind of spiritual advisor for the Klingon populace. Both Gary Hutzel and Glenn Neufeld were assigned to this episode as co-visual effects supervisors. Usually they did alternating episodes, but due to the level of effects needed for this show, it was felt that both the talents of these men were required. When Kasidy first sees Sisko, she compliments him on his freshly shaved head. In the early season of the show, he would grow his hair, making Sisko's appearance distinct from that of Hawk, the character he portrayed on Spencer for Hire. Beginning in this episode, Brooks went back to the shaved head look, which he preferred, and kept it for the remainder of the series.
It just suits him way more.
Way more.
The new TR-590 medical tricorder X appears for the first time in this episode after the new regular tricorder had already been introduced in Voyager's initiation.
Did you notice the new phasers?
I did not, but
because they retired the TNG era phaser and they went to this modified version that has more of a curve to it. That kind of it goes around your hip a little bit more, like the curve when it's on your belt.
Oh, okay.
Check it out.
O'Brien and Worf's conversation about saving Jean-Luc Picard from the Borg is a reference to the best of both worlds, during which time both men served on the Enterprise. While O'Brien's direct involvement in the rescue of Captain Picard was minimal, he was merely the ship's transporter chief at the time. Worf took a more active role in the rescue as the ship's tactical officer and chief of security.
O'Brien's pretty active in that second part. He has to do the whole thing, monitoring the thing when they're trying to hack into him, and it's not like O'Brien did nothing in that episode.
That's true. An unfilmed or deleted portion of the scene between Kira and O'Brien, where they discuss upgrades to the station, saw O'Brien reveal he and Bashir are participating in a holosuite program based on the Battle of Britain, which would be officially mentioned in Homefront. In the scene, Kira seeks O'Brien's advice on how to enjoy the holosuite programs, referring to an earlier scene with Kira and Dax when Kira expressed unease in the holograph Hubushian Bass. Okay. Sisko's
what
claim. What about the Macleth?
It was the first appearance of the Macleth.
Oh, okay. First appearance of Macleth. Sisko claims that the communication array in the Gamma Quadrant hasn't detected any Dominion ship movements near the wormhole is a reference to the 3rd season episode Destiny. When they deployed that thing. The studio model for Gowron's flagship, the Negvar, was 7 feet long to give the impression of its great size. The model was always shot from below. Since it never appeared on camera, the dorsal surface of the model was completely unfinished, so that the top was unfinished. That's why it's always shown from the bottom. This is actually a really cool one. During the battle sequences, between the Federation and Klingon fleets. The effects departments used Playmates toys, Erdl model kits, and Hallmark bird of prey Christmas ornaments in the background in an effort to keep production costs down. When one of the toy ships was required to explode, special effects manager Gary Monarch filled it with explosives and party glitter.
It's amazing.
That is cool, isn't it? In the fight scene between the Klingons and the Bajorans on Starfleet, only a few stuntmen appear. They were reused, and most of them were shot twice or 3 times and appeared in the next scene in a different place. You never notice because you never care.
No.
You never care when a main character gets shot.
These supernumeraries, we don't keep track of them.
No. We understand they are stuntmen. This episode is the first of 3 feature-length episodes within all Star Trek series that was not a series pilot or finale. The second was the Voyager Season 5 episode, Dark Frontier, and the third was another Voyager episode, Flesh and Blood.
Because when you mentioned that, it's a little bit like when 7 of 9 came into Voyager, this moment, right?
Season 5, probably, right? Like
Season 4. It was also Season 4 for Voyager. Except for them, they lost Cass and 7 of 9 came in. They don't lose anybody to bring in Worf. They
kind of lose Jake, at least in this episode.
He was never really here that much to begin with.
As his first task on DS9, illustrator John Eves, who was hired during the hiatus between 3 and 4, was assigned to design several new Klingon ships, which would first be seen in this episode. Eves drew a number of concepts based on existing models, but with numerous surface alterations. Ultimately, however, none of his proposed designs were seen in this episode due to budgetary constraints. The producers decided to use regular Klingon ships for the battle scenes, apart from the IKS Negvar. Apart from the IKS, which was originally intended for a one-time only appearance in the Next Gen episode, All Good Things Part 1, and that was hurried back from the opening leg of the Star Trek exhibition tour in Scotland. Eve's work was not in vain, however, as his discarded design later served as the basis for the Klingon bird of prey in the series Enterprise. It's been a long road.
Ugliest bird of prey ever was the Enterprise.
It was a long road for that bird of prey. Okay.
Get ready, Kevin. We're going to talk about it eventually.
Uh-huh. Right.
Okay, sorry. And finally, at the end of this episode, Lieutenant Commander Worf changes into Command Red and says a line stating that it feels good to be in red. As Ashley mentioned earlier, technically, he should have said, feels good to be back in red. The writers must have forgotten that he was wearing Command Red during the first season of TNG. And that is it for fun facts. All right.
Maybe you did forget. All right, let's bring in our ratings. And we are starting season 4. How exciting. Jeff, why don't you start us off? I don't know if you want to rate them separately, the first episodes, but technically that's our tradition.
It's one episode for me, but
then you just give the same rating twice.
I'll go 9.8 on this one. It's like 9. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna say to me like they're the same. I'm going 10. I don't know if Jameel's out there anywhere.
I think he was gonna give it a 10.
Ashley, are you giving it a 10?
Jeff, 9.8 on both.
Okay, and Kevin,
10 on both.
That's pretty good. So I think
I can't give it a 10 because it's not my favorite episode of this.
I don't think it's my favorite either, but I think it's almost flawless.
It is flawless, yeah.
I'm just gonna check my messages to make sure Jaemeel hasn't sent me a rating separately. He has not. Okay. Oh, I can hear him. Can anyone else hear him?
Nope.
Okay, Jaemeel, tell us your rating. 9.9, he says. To both parts? Okay. So thank you, Jaemeel. That's pretty good. That's a 9.9. That's the best ever for. Have we ever come that high? I don't think so.
No, there's no way.
So this is the best. This is the best episode of Star Trek so far, or Deep Space Nine, at least, Jeff.
I mean, it's hard. It's like Kevin said. Like, it's hard to even give it a 9.8 or a 9.9 because it is so like perfect. But it's so theatrical. Like, this could have been a movie. This episode.
Yeah, it would have been better than some of the other movies we did get.
That is true.
James Conway, as mentioned, directed this. He directed other episodes. He directed Emissary. He directed Duet of this show. He's directed quite a few big Star Trek episodes. And
they bring him in when they know they have a good episode.
Almost a Sisko Worf episode, I guess.
I think
kind of everybody though.
It's kind of everybody. So maybe we say ensemble.
Just put not Jake.
No, not a Jake episode. Everyone but Jake.
Okay, so next week is Jake, as we're doing The Visitor, Jeff.
Okay, The Visitor for me is like, as much as I love The Way of the Warrior, The Visitor is such a good episode. It is so emotionally heart-pulling, and it to me is a fantastic episode of television, regardless of Star Trek. So good. It's the performance that what's his name? What's his name?
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd gives is so good. It's like, it's memorable. It's like I would throw that episode up now, just like this one, and have no problem watching.
Tony Todd had already played and would continue to play Kern, the brother of Worf.
Right.
But they bring him in here to play older Jake Sisko.
And he also plays a Herodian in Voyager.
And he's I love him in the movie Candyman. If you've ever seen Candyman from the I guess 80s and 90s is when they made those two movies. He was
they remade it. They just remade it
with him or somebody else.
He's probably in the movie. I won't be surprised if he's going to be in it.
Yeah. Tony Todd. He's got one of the great voices. He was on season 2 of The Flash, playing Zoom, the voice of Zoom on that season. Really good stuff. I'm excited for next week. The Visitor is great. My only down part of The Visitor is where it falls, because it comes in right after this. And because you're like, well, they wouldn't kill Sisko off right after Worf got here. So it doesn't make sense. Like, this is obviously going to have to resolve itself by the end of the hour, but that's fine. That's my only complaint about the episode.
I guess I don't really worry about the stakes in Star Trek episodes, because the only time they ever killed anybody really was like Tasha Yar and Dax, like where they really killed them. And they're both kind of like out of nowhere, and you're both kind of like, what? Okay, I didn't see that coming. It's never telegraphed. And when you do see telegraphed like episodes like you're talking about, I just kind of go with the story.
Yeah. Well, that's this story. As the Klingons would say.
They didn't even have the balls to kill Kes. And I think people would have cheered. I think people would have been happy.
They murdered Tuvix.
They had no problem murdering Tuvix. That's true.
It is a good story.
And you tell it well.
Yes, you tell it well. Okay, so is that it, guys? Should we start plugging what's coming up next? On everything, Live Long and Podcast, Superman or Bros podcasting, Trivial Debates.
Yeah, let's do all those. Let's plug all of those things. Here, Live Long and Podcast. On Monday nights, we talk about Star Trek, the original series, at least when everyone remembers that we have a Monday night podcast. Apparently on holiday Mondays, no one remembered. So there was no show last night, but we will be back next Monday for the Squire of Gothos.
Get ready for the change-in, Dave.
Get ready for the change-ins. Dad was drunk at a party somewhere, and
Adam hadn't watched it, and
Adam had watched it. Jody had also forgotten.
Right.
So yeah, there was no episode last night, but it's okay. We can take a week off.
I loved it. I was in the chat, and it was just Dave going, "Hey, is anybody showing up? It's okay if you're not, but I'm just sitting. I just picture you sitting alone at 8:00, waiting for Dad."
The truth is, I had also forgotten, but not. I had at least remembered in time to watch the episode. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, holiday Mondays throw you off.
It threw me off too. So hey, I understood the guys. I just want to give them a little hard time about it. But so we'll be back in a week. And then Star Trek Radio Theater. We just did a new one on Saturday night. Eventually, I'll be getting to the edits on those and putting out the final edited versions. But we just did Star Trek: The Next Generation's Cause and Effect and the Time Loop. Had a lot of fun with Ashley and Kevin and you, Jeff. You were there, and all the gang. It was a great one.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's coming up on Super Mario Bros. Podcasting, Dave?
Jeff, we're talking about Big Brother USA season 23, 3 times a week. Going into week 4, and so we have our friends, we have our draft, we watch every episode, we talk about the players, the dynamics, the everything. It's fascinating. If you haven't watched it, you really should.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have anything to plug?
Anything on your Twitters, your social medias?
Twitter, Instagram. Okay.
And podcast, dude.
And when is our next Trivial Debate, Steve?
Anyway, Eamon's okay. Also, Eamon's podcast called Talking About Fighting Games. Check that out on Spotify. And also Trivial Debates, which is our monthly channel where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more. Now that we're in August, we can start looking ahead to our August Trivial Debates, which will be August 29th.
Okay. Have we figured out who's hosting?
I know that the Seymours will be involved. I was going to ask Jaemeel if he wanted to be involved in that one as a host potentially. So, TBD, he says.
Okay.
I like that Jaemeel is like my conscience. Only I can hear him. And the rest of you can't.
Yeah,
He's your Jiminy Cricket.
He's my Jiminy Cricket right now. Yeah. He's like, don't forget Eamon's podcast. I was like, oh yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I don't really want to be the one to go out on this episode. I think we should go to our esteemed big fan Gowron. Can we get a Gowron?
Can we get some Gowron? I'm sure we can scroll up to some Gowron.
For all of us here at Live Long and Podcast, Gowron would like to say,
Gloria.